There are some incredible roller coasters out there in the world, and a lot of them have been recognized as being truly iconic rides. The other day, I was asked what is the most famous coaster in the world, and it really got me thinking, why don't I just compile a top 10 and upload it to my channel? That, my friends, is what we'll be doing in today's video, and in addition, I'll try to cite the reasons as to why each of these 10 rides are so dang popular. In most cases, I believe it's quite obvious, but others not so much. So let's dive into the list of the top 10 most iconic roller coasters in the world. Coming in at number 10 is Nemesis at Alton Towers. This is one of two roller coasters outside of the United States that made the cut, and both are situated in Europe. Now, Alton Towers in general is a pretty famous park. It's well known across England as being the country's best theme park due to a variety of reasons, including its diverse collection of roller coasters. While the park's Smiler is certainly quite famous as well, being the coaster with the most inversions in the world, I still don't think it comes close to Nemesis. This Bolliger and Mabillard inverted coaster opened in 1994, making it nearly 30 years old. And as a matter of fact, it's currently being retracked to increase the longevity of the ride. The soonest you'll get to experience this beloved attraction again is in 2024 when it turns 30 years old. I believe the fame of the ride can really be credited to its extremely unique layout. Since Alton Towers isn't allowed to build above the tree line, they have to get really creative with their coasters, and Nemesis is no exception. The ride dives through trenches and past rockwork, which combined with the inverted coaster design makes it one of the most praised rides of its kind in the world. Number 9, Incredible Hulk at Islands of Adventure. Of all the coasters at the Universal Orlando Resort, many of which have been incredibly famous, I believe the Incredible Hulk stands out amongst the rest. Though with the current trajectory of Velocicoaster's fame growing higher by the year, I could easily see it catching up with Hulk in the future. Like Nemesis, this coaster was manufactured by Bolliger and Mabillard and was entirely retracked in 2016 to ensure that it would stick around for years to come. This is no cheap investment, but for a ride like Hulk, which has been so incredibly well received, it's also a no-brainer. Opening in 1999, the Incredible Hulk opened in an era when B&M were still getting in the hang of things and were building very intense attractions. If you ask me, this is by far one of the most forceful roller coasters I've ever ridden, and it's great. This isn't to mention Hulk's beautiful location along the water, making it very photogenic. If you ask me, it's no wonder why this attraction has gotten so incredibly famous. Number 8, Expedition GeForce at Holiday Park. In my opinion, the most famous roller coaster outside of America is easily this one. When it opened, Expedition GeForce was located at what was a pretty small park in southern Germany. I believe part of the reason it became so famous was because of its incredible reviews really putting the park on the map. And I hope a similar sort of thing happens with Air Force One at Fun Spot in Atlanta, Georgia, because if you ask me, that's the next closest example of something like this happening. Maybe even more so because I rank it a fair bit higher than Expedition GeForce. The difference is, this coaster opened in 2001. It was manufactured by Intamin and designed by Werner Stengel, who stated that this was Intamin's finest work to date. And that's saying something considering Millennium Force at Cedar Point had just opened 1 year prior. Expedition GeForce stands just 173 feet tall, which isn't short by any means, but it has a layout reminiscent to a 200-foot hypercoaster. That said, the ride didn't need that extra height. It takes full advantage of all of its momentum to create a fast-paced experience with thigh-bruising ejector airtime. Even as it's over 20 years old now, Expedition GeForce remains one of the highest rated roller coasters out there. Number 7, Matterhorn Bobsleds at Disneyland. Now, there's a pretty hilarious fact about this ride that'll give you an idea of just how well known it is across the world. According to Google, Matterhorn Bobsleds is more searched for than the Matterhorn mountain in Switzerland that the ride's based around. Disneyland straight up built their own man-made mountain, which has given the ride a really unique themed identity. In addition, Matterhorn was an extremely important ride for the amusement park industry. This would be the first time a tubular steel coaster had been built when it opened in 1959. Its janky track imperfections are certainly noticeable today, but it adds a lot to the ride's character in my opinion. Despite the fact that it's pushing 64 years old, Matterhorn remains a genuinely awesome ride. Number 6, Kingda at Six Flags Great Adventure. I believe this is the easiest coaster to crack down on why it's so famous. Unless you've been living under a rock, you'll know that Kingda is the tallest roller coaster on the planet. It's held said record since 2005 at a ginormous 456 feet tall. And to reach that height, the ride has to travel at speeds of up to 128 miles per hour, still the second fastest coaster in the world. These eye-popping stats are clearly the reason Kingda is as well known as it is, and I have to say I'm grateful for that. Frankly, I think this coaster deserves even more love amongst coaster enthusiasts. Because it's been so famous, a lot of people in the community like to disregard the coaster. But if you ask me, the stats are one thing and the ride experience is another. A front row ride on this beast is an absolutely epic experience, and I wish more people realize that. Number 5, Magnum XL 200 at Cedar Point. Though you might hear it tossed around as the Magnum, this coaster has been extremely popular since it debuted in 1989. Magnum XL 200 has a pretty interesting story because originally manufacturer Aerodynamics and legendary designer Ron Toomer proposed a 187-foot tall coaster to surpass the then tallest roller coaster coaster drop Shockwave at Six Flags Great America. That got Cedar Point's management interested in breaking the 200-foot barrier, partly because of the publicity to be gained from building the first roller coaster to do so. That was certainly the right call, because from then on out, Cedar Point would be known as the park to break records. Now, having ridden this coaster, I think the fact that it wasn't designed on a computer like later hypercoasters was the cause to a fairly lackluster layout, but others love the janky nature of the ride in a similar fashion to what I think of Matterhorn at Disneyland. To be fair, it has been since 2019 when I last rode this coaster, so it is possible I just need to do it again. But nevertheless, I'll always give it credit for being a revolutionary and very important ride in the industry. Sticking in the same park, number 4 is Millennium Force at Cedar Point. They don't call it the roller coaster capital of the world for nothing. Magnum had been the first full-circuit roller coaster to surpass 200 feet. In 2000, at the turn of the millennium, the first full-circuit 300-footer had been built, the term of which was coined by Cedar Fair and would be called a Giga Coaster. This would be Millennium Force. They also went on to break the 400-foot height barrier with Top Thrill Dragster, which narrowly missed the cut. But Millennium Force, to me, has got to be the most well-known amongst the bunch for sure. The world had never seen a ride quite like this. Millennium Force has a 300-foot drop angled at 80 degrees, a max speed of 93 miles per hour, and a world-class layout of swooping turns and large airtime hills. To this day, Millennium Force is one of my favorite roller coasters in the world, and similar to Kingda, it's not praised by coaster enthusiasts nearly enough. Number 3, the Beast at Kings Island. I think you can make a dang good argument for this being number 1, but honestly, ranking the coasters on this list was a real challenge. Regardless, the Beast is an extremely beloved attraction, opening in 1979 as the longest wooden roller coaster in the world. What I find amazing about this thing is, after almost 45 years, the Beast holds onto its record with an iron fist. With a length of 7,361 feet, this coaster isn't just a ride, it's an experience. You'll go way out into the woods outside of park boundaries, which is an extremely unique experience, especially at night. Back in the late 70s, when they were looking into building this coaster, they literally could not find a manufacturer that had the capability to do so. So what did? They did it themselves. Kings Island's determination to construct a truly unique world-class wooden roller coaster will be cherished for decades to come. Number 2, Space Mountain at Disneyland. I'm sure all of you saw this one coming. Now, I'll be honest, I find this one a bit weird. Obviously, it's at a Disney park, which gives it a major advantage, but why Space Mountain and not, say, Thunder Mountain? Maybe it has something to do with the fact that indoor roller coasters, and especially ones this good, were incredibly rare. Maybe it was just the simple space theme that was super popular amongst the youngsters. To be honest, I can't quite put my finger on exactly why Space Mountain ranks this high. If any of you guys have a good idea as to why, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. To its credit, I have a soft spot for this ride. It's one of the coasters I grew up riding, and to this day, I think it's a fantastic coaster. Apparently, it only goes 32 miles per hour, but I find that very hard to believe. The ride has masterful pacing and a great sense of speed that some coasters twice its speed can't accomplish nearly as well. But anyways, coming in at the number 1 spot is very clearly the Coney Island Cyclone at Luna Park. This is that ride that your parents and your parents' parents talk about riding all the time growing up. The Cyclone opened in 1927 and has been considered an icon for New York City ever since. If you ask me, it's right behind the Statue of Liberty and Empire State Building as one of the most iconic landmarks in the city. Maybe I'm a little biased being that I'm a roller coaster enthusiast who loves this ride, but if one thing's for certain, this is exactly what people think of when they imagine an old wooden roller coaster. Though, through extensive TLC, the Cyclone is actually really smooth, comfortable, and filled to the brim with pretty wild forces. I believe this should be on everyone's bucket list, not just because it's number 1 on this list, but because it's an actually amazing ride. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching this video. There were a few rides that almost made the cut. I mentioned Top Thrill Dragster, but there's also X2 at Six Flags Magic Mountain, Steel Dragon 2000 at Nagashima Spa Land, Rushibanen at Tivoli Gardens, and the Santa Monica West Coaster at the Santa Monica Pier. For the record, I excluded the latter example since I don't think many people that recognize it can pinpoint its actual name. If that's not a factor for you, well then West Coaster may have just been number 2 or 3 on this list. But regardless, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to Coaster Dash for more content like this in the future. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye guys.